everybody to Pokemon Roundtable. It is I, Arrows Gaming. Look, we're wearing a fancy jacket today, upping our look on the show. We got a good episode for you guys tonight. We're going to be joined a little later on by Gateguardian44. We're going to be talking about doing prepping for IRL events compared to prepping for remote card games. While Gate Guardian is primarily a Yu-Gi-Oh player, I believe that the prep work for all card games are the same, IRL to online. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to go over like different changes to being prepared for this sort of thing in a real life setting as opposed to doing it on a remote duel setting. So look forward to that. But if you guys do not know, Pokemon IRL events returned last weekend. It was the Brisbane Regionals. We have a top 16 deck list. Huge thanks to limitlesstcg.com. They got this information out super quickly. We just want to go over the top 16 for a quick second before we hop into everything else. As you can see here, we have the top 16 of this past weekend's Brisbane TCG Regionals, and man, look at that. First of all, I just want to say I love Limitless TCG's layout for this stuff. They give you the name of the player who came in first, the country they're from, little Pokemon gifts for what they were playing, and then we have the deck list over here. So as you can see, coming in first place was Natalie Miller from Australia. Huge congratulations to you. She was piloting Genesect Mew, which honestly, let's not be surprised. We've known since Fusion Strike that Mew and Genesect was one of the strongest decks, if not the strongest deck in recent history of Pokemon trading card game. But what a great top, like what a not, I don't want to say like a very varied top 16, but definitely the meta is definitely showing right here with what we have. So out of this top 16, we had 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 Mew and Genesect decks. Crazy. We had 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 RCS variants. We have Arceus Duraludon, Arceus Inteleon, Arceus Suicune, Arceus Ice Rider, Arceus Moltres. Lots of variants in our Arceus deck profiles, which I believe is the coolest thing about Arceus, is that its ability to really just go in anywhere and make anything good. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter talking about how they're trying to make Arceus work with Centriscorch, Arceus work with Flygon, Arceus work with insert good V's and V maxes here that maybe don't see play because their decks are not fast enough, and obviously Arceus provides them with a much needed speed boost while giving them a solid excellent attacker that's going to be powering up other Pokemon, and if it gets knocked out, you're only taking 2 prizes instead of 3 like you would for a VMAX. And then rounding out our top 16, we had 2 Gengar single strike decks. I really like this deck. This is the deck that I kind of want to play competitively going forward. I love Gengar. He is obviously, you see him right there, my co-ghost on Twitch TV. He watches over me while I make really bad plays. He is my favorite Pokemon, and honestly, we don't get enough good decks that we can use Gengar in. So I'm happy to see that even in this area, Gengar is still doing good. Still took 2 spots in the top 16, which is really awesome. But this is definitely going to shape how our meta looks, I feel, for our pre Astral Radiance meta. Obviously, Astral Radiance might change this up a lot again because we're going to get Darkrai V and V-Star and lots of other really good support cards for that. Dark Patch comes out, making perhaps Gengar, Houndoom a lot more prevalent because you're going to be able to recycle those dark energies from the discard pile. It's going to be very interesting to see where we go forward from this. But I like top 2 decks. Arceus Duraludon definitely seems like the strongest variant of Arceus right now. It definitely feels like it is doing the most work. Duraludon is such a great card, and Arceus with us as a pairing is just fantastic. And of course, Mew Genesect. I don't really think a lot changes in the next set. Like maybe a Darkrai makes Mew Genesect seem a little bit less powerful, but still Mew, I don't think Mew Genesect is a deck that is going anywhere anytime soon. So that is really cool. Again, if you want to get all of your Pokemon TCG tournament reports, deck lists, definitely check out limitlesstcg.com. They are fantastic for what they want to do, and it's really good. So definitely check them out. Welcome back, guys. Pokemon Roundtable, Arrows here, and I am once again joined with Gateguardian44, host of the Gate Expectation podcast and the Gate News. We're here, we're back again, and we got a very cool topic because, as we have mentioned before, Pokemon IRL events are back for TCG and VGC. The Brisbane regionals just happened this past weekend, and this weekend coming up is Salt Lake City. Let me just say, it is amazing to hear that IRL events are back in card games. COVID has definitely put a huge damper on IRL events on all levels. Like for myself, we just recently got back into IRL locals here for Pokemon, and it's just been so great to hang out and play games with friends again without some form of computer screen being in front of us. And so we got Gate Guardian with us tonight. And what have you been up to since we last saw you?
Well, I've definitely been playing a lot of the Pokemon Arceus for sure. Kind of settled down a little bit on that now, and moved back to Stardew Valley. But now I'm playing it on PC with my fiance because now we're taking on all the mods and we're getting a little bit of expansion involved. So definitely a lot to play with Stardew Valley. And of course, I'm back to IRL Yu-Gi-Oh, which has been fantastic. Which is one of the big reasons why I love trading card games is playing in person, and it absolutely has been a rough 2 years having to go online for a bit, and then now finally getting back to playing IRL. I wish I could play without the masks for a bit, but be as it may, that's just how the world is right now, and until it's fully safe that we can have them off, then sure, I would love to take them off whenever I can, but for now we got to keep them on. But at least I can have more people over at my house to be able to play, and we can have masks off there a little bit easier because we're all in our circle or whatnot. But yeah, that's just the one big change that I'm just trying to get myself still adjusted to, is having to play Yu-Gi-Oh with a mask, because I'm technically not used to that yet.
It's actually, I was actually thinking about this earlier today when I was getting ready for this. It's actually kind of poetic that I am doing this one with you, because we actually met through IRL Yu-Gi-Oh events way back when I used to drive up to your city and play some card games at the old J2s. So I was actually reminiscing about that today.
Yep, around 2005. That's 2005. Sorry, 2006.
Yeah.
When that happened, we first we met each other. Actually, we met a little bit before that, but it was more often that you showed up around 2006.
Yeah.
That time I met your brother. I met some of your brother's friends, and then really started to get attached to them a little bit more. And then after that, after I started becoming a little bit better and better, I would start visiting your hometown.
Yeah.
Well, not your hometown, your town.
Yeah.
Your locals a whole bunch, which was fantastic because I would come to your town. We would play locals, and then come back to your place or come back to Link to the Past place, and we play a bunch of video games, maybe go out for dinner somewhere.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. Every time I come up to your city, I loved being there. And it was also fun living there for a year and a half, because I was there for school, journalism school, and it was just cool to hang around you at least once a week, because you would always host Pokemon in the mall, and I would come visit you. And even though I don't really play Pokemon, I know how to play, and you just toss me a deck and I would just go have fun with it.
Yeah. And it's awesome to reminisce about all that stuff and to think about how far games in general have come. And I have to give credit where credit is due. A lot of the companies did a very good job with their card games throughout the COVID experience. And you actually got to play a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh during the COVID experience. And how does gameplay vary from IRL to everything through the COVID? Because the COVID experience was 2 years pretty much. So what was that like going into that and then coming out of that?
Well, before I get into that, I'm going to prelude this with the pandemic really put a crunch on card games, first of all. So a lot of companies had problems figuring out, okay, how do we make these tournaments go online? How can we do this to adapt to the pandemic? So Konami with Yu-Gi-Oh decided we were going to start remote duels, but that didn't happen until about a couple months into the pandemic. So when we finally got it, then we all had to get used to using whatever programs we want to do. So Discord, for example, was a huge thing, and a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments were run on Discord to make that happen. So for a lot of people that didn't play Yu-Gi-Oh during the pandemic, because it was a lot harder to get cards, because a lot of card shops were closed, they were not deemed a necessary business to be open. uh, a lot of people kind of took a break. So when I kind of got back into it a little bit and had that break, there were so many cards that came out that I had no idea what they did. And usually when you're playing with somebody in real life, if you don't know what a card does, often you would ask them, "Hey, can I see the card for a second? Read it." Normal thing. Can't really do that if you're playing online with somebody. It's not like I can just click on the card and just say, "Oh, the card pops up like on a screen" or something like that if I'm playing on Discord. So I'd have to like refer to my phone, and I'd like, sorry, 1 second, go to my phone, like scroll through, make sure my internet's working properly, look up the card, like, okay. And then it also kind of gets awkward where if you forget the card effect, because you have to memorize like what, 5-10 new cards that are coming at you if you're playing a new deck, then you often you can get confused with what does what again. And I have a very bad short-term memory, so I have to ask again, sorry, what does that card do? What does that card do? And then it often gets a little bit awkward at that point, having to ask that same card again, because like you feel like you should already know by now what that card is.
Yeah.
But you don't. And I had that experience a lot with some of the tournaments where I would have to play against my opponents and I would not know what that card does, or whatever. And I would just say, okay, yeah, sure, that's totally cool. Not realizing that if I let this certain effect go through, if I don't respond to it, then that's going to be like the end of me. So that itself becomes a bit of a problem. And also that happens to be vice versa too, with when I play with other people that don't know what deck I'm playing, then they have to continually ask all the time. And then not to mention, like, when you keep asking and keep interacting with, talking with your opponent to figure out effects, then you can start like forgetting things, like things that get lost in the mix. Like, for example, like if we're playing Pokemon, what was it, the Octillery, or what is it, the card that it's in the graveyard, if it's in your discard pile, you can get it back?
Execute.
Yeah, so it's like, for example, like if you keep talking through it and like you keep forgetting what like effect this Pokemon does in here, and then you get lost, and you might forget that execute in your graveyard, in your discard pile. And again, it just, a lot of distractions happen, and a lot of different moving parts are happening when you're playing online. Like, people don't realize that there are new obstacles that you have to go through. Not to mention that, not everybody is got an excellent camera with them. So and setups are a lot different when you're playing like online, because you have to have a good camera. First of all, you don't have a good camera, and you got to make sure you have a great angle on your cards.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if I put my camera down, you can kind of see that that's what it would look like if you were playing against me. But not everybody has like that good of an angle. Some people have to do, which can make it a little bit harder for people. And when you're looking at a field that has that's like poor video quality, it kind of makes it harder to read the cards. Like, and how much effort do you really want to put in just figuring out what that card is?
Yeah, it's actually,
and that kind of take away from the experience.
It's actually kind of interesting that you mentioned all the computer technical aspects to it now, because at the start of this pandemic, and for a good chunk of it, a lot of the really high-end computer pieces were really hard to get your hands on. Like, I know for myself, when I made the switch from streaming just from a PS4, and I got the computer and I was looking at like webcams and all that stuff, it was really, really hard to find everything that I needed to get going. Like I got super lucky with the webcam that I was able to get, because I got Christmas money early, and Best Buy was having a sale, and so it was really easy to go and get that. But I know a lot of people, because a lot of people were getting into this style of content, streaming, YouTube videos, remote duels. A lot of people were. COVID really brought this wave of mass computer upgrades and computer buyings, and it made a lot of this stuff really hard to find for a long time.
And then in turn, like, for example, like the mic that I got here, it wasn't available locally for me. I had to order it online and had to be shipped to me, and I had to wait a good 2 weeks for it to come. And of course, with COVID, like at its peak, like making sure that not a lot of deliveries were able to happen.
Yeah.
Not a lot of stores were open. It made it incredibly difficult for people to be able to purchase stuff locally and then bring it in. They don't have to like order it online from like a big company, like either like Amazon or Walmart or whatnot. And that it would just be like kind of an inconvenience. And you don't think of maybe getting everything all in one go. because I don't think of, okay, I got to get a mic, I got a mic, camera, maybe a light, the stand, arm, all in one day. No, I never did that. I got pretty much every single individual piece like separately on separate days,
Hmm.
either because of money, either because availability, or like time constraints. Like there are a lot of moving pieces involved to be able to get all of the equipment together. And then sometimes like the equipment doesn't work. Like this is my second webcam that I had. The first webcam I had was terrible. It was actually broken the first day. Wasn't good
Oof.
at all. So I had to get a second camera. I have like I have a light up. I bought one of the lights. So there's a lot of moving pieces that are involved. So it's not just having to buy like everything all at once. You had
Yeah.
to buy one thing here, one thing there, because you may not be available to buy everything all day. So there was definitely a technological like crutch in order to be able to finally be able to sit down and play like online at your own computer.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And going into like the first, because like these weren't just like locals that were being hosted through remote duels. Like I know Konami did YCSs through remote duels, and you played in a couple of those, I believe.
Yeah, the YCS is standing for the Yu-Gi-Oh Championship Series, a very major tournament in the Yu-Gi-Oh circuit. Yeah, I definitely played a couple of them for sure. And you're gonna play from everybody from like all over the world at this point.
Hmm.
So a lot of these tournaments would attract some like international attention, like primarily from like, let's say if there's one in the United States, there would be a lot from like Canada, United States, maybe some Mexico.
Hmm.
You might get a couple Europeans here and there, but of course now that it's online, you have the convenience of your own computer. You don't
Exactly,
need the computer
exactly.
anywhere. So I would be playing some people from like Europe, from Puerto Rico. Maybe that's even though it's still America, like Central America. Like I would be playing people from all over the world. That was in the TCG, the trading card game, which is basically the English meta. So like Asia has their own meta.
Yeah,
For
yeah, yeah.
people who don't know that in Yu-Gi-Oh that there's two separate metas here. So yeah, I would be able to play people from all over the world that I wouldn't even think of being able to play when I'd play like at a more like localized event, or at least closer in proximity. So that was one advantage, you could say, is that you get a little bit more exposure to playing with so many other players all over the world.
But with that being said, yes, there is the advantage of getting to play a vast amount of different people. Did that also bring like a disadvantage? Because obviously if you're here in Canada and you're playing somebody in, I don't know, Europe, obviously there's different internet connections, different like time zones. Does stuff like that play into a remote setting? Like, does it come with its own set of disadvantages as well?
Definitely can, especially if you are playing in a European event as well, because they're roughly like 6, 7, 8 hours ahead
Hmm.
of us. So here in North America, so you could be playing at like really odd and inordinate times.
Hmm.
And not to mention that because Konami was kind of doing this new, the online events would take a little bit longer than usual because they didn't have as much experience getting it through. Often major tournaments on the first day would start at, for me, it would start at maybe 9 a.m. in the morning, but it wouldn't end until 2 a.m. at night. And that is just absolutely ludicrous. And then you also have to wake up for 6 hours later
Yeah.
and then get ready to play the day two if you made it that far.
Yeah.
So it also can be mentally taxing as well. And then there's a lot of downtime in between because of all the matches that are happening in between rounds. Often after we were done like a game, we would go back to our local Discord channel and we would just chat, talk, and that could go on for like an hour. I think the first YCS I played, it took 2 hours for round 2 to start.
Oof.
After round 1 had finished. Yeah,
That
2 hours.
is
So
craziness.
yeah, absolutely it is. And that could just be part of the growing pains and the quote unquote like inexperience
Yeah.
of Konami running an online event. But nonetheless, it does take a toll on a lot of players having to go through that mental strain, because just playing 8-9 hours at least in a major event in real life can already be mentally taxing enough.
Oh, definitely.
And I was cracked the joke that you never ever have your 8 hours of sleep when you go to these events.
No,
You're
definitely
always
not.
running on fumes. Like it's very rare that I actually get a full 8 hours sleep before any of these events.
Oh no,
So
for sure. I agree completely.
yeah, and then not to mention like there's not a lot of food options in majority of venues that you're around. So that also takes away at your energy unless you're packing some food, which I do now when I go to longer events. I always pack a little food with me,
Yeah.
and then that all that like combined can get really toxic. At least now when you're at home, you have the pleasure of I can walk to my fridge and you see right there, grab something, and I can probably eat in the middle of it, and at least I can be a little bit better, a little bit better.
Yeah.
But there's definitely that moments where you have to wait and wait and wait, and you know, you kind of maybe you got to kind of get out of the zone a little bit because you know you got when I'm fresh off a match and I like and if I won, then I'm thinking in my mindset, okay, I gotta win, gotta keep going. Like I'm kind of riding that momentum,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
riding that steam. So, and then if a couple hours pass and I haven't been able to play in a while, then
Oh
like
yeah, 100%.
maybe like in other people, like the anxiety might pump up a little bit. Again, you've kind of lost the hype in you a little bit, and you just kind of drained at that point. So there's also a bit of like an emotional like touch to having to play online with the couple hours lull in between.
Yeah, for sure. Now we're coming out of this and we're going back into IRL events. Obviously, I'm assuming you've been able to play in some IRL locals since we've been back. How does the preparation for like the tournament itself differ now from coming out of like a pandemic and going into more IRL events that are obviously going to be a little bit more localized than like than a regionals that people from all over the place were coming to? How does that differ, like mentally and well, I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Technically, is that the word I'm looking for?
Well, you're not going to see a lot of travel for sure in this sense. Like usually, we'd be able to attract several players from out of town to come to our locals. Now, there's a little bit more reluctancy to kind of see that nowadays. Uh, you know, since Ontario for a while said that you had to have a vaccine passport, and
Yes.
not every Yu-Gi-Oh player is going to be vaccinated. So that kind of isolates a little bit of that. There are some people who, you know, maybe are a little bit scared of having to come into this kind of dynamic just because of the pandemic. So maybe not a lot of people are coming out at this time. They want to wait till everything is like fully safe before they can come back. So there's a lot of that kind of scares it away too. So I've definitely seen a decline in the numbers in my local Yu-Gi-Oh scene just because the pandemic still has an effect on it for the people who are unvaxxed, for the people who still aren't fully safe, or people are just making sure that they want to keep everyone else safe.
Mm-hmm.
So which I completely understand, I get. So there's an effect on that too. And not to mention before in Ontario, not so much now, that there were capacity limits
Mm-hmm. Yes,
before.
yes,
Like
yes,
my
yes.
store was limited to having 12 people in the store to play. So it's like, do people want to fight for it? Do people really want to go? It's you can ask both sides of the question and get a no on both sides. So that also can play a role as well in people wanting to play Yu-Gi-Oh again. And of course, like you could say on the flip side of things, there are people who's like, I don't care. I just want to play Yu-Gi-Oh. If I have to wear a mask, if I got to be vaxxed, whatever, I'll do it just so I can go play in real life Yu-Gi-Oh again. That's sort of the attitude that I've adopted.
Yeah.
It's just I just want to play like in real life because that's where I feel like that's where I'm the best
Mm-hmm.
at playing. So I like playing in person. So that's personally how I feel the pandemic has had a bit of an effect coming back to in real life locals. But and then not to mention when you're playing the games as well, some people are still a bit wary of their opponent touching their cards. Some people do, some people don't. I
Yeah.
personally don't care if somebody touches my card still. Like we all have to put hand sanitizer on our hands before we enter the store anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it is what it is, and the washroom facilities are still available. So you know we try to keep whatever steps we can to keep ourselves clean. Yeah, I know it's a bit ironic card players being clean.
There is a not entirely a false image of that goes around the world. That's not entirely inaccurate, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, in the Yu-Gi-Oh world, it's actually a rule now where you can be asked to leave a tournament if your hygiene is too much of a problem for other duelists.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have to actually remain clean. And I always try to shower like either the night before or the night of. So I try to keep myself clean for sure. But there are definitely some stinky ones that I have been around in my card shop, and oh boy, I can't take it sometimes. But yeah, but that's a legitimate thing now in Yu-Gi-Oh. So yeah, there's a slight bit of awkwardness now and having to deal with like, can I touch your cards? Can I not touch your cards? It's almost like if you're gonna greet somebody, it's like, how do I greet somebody right now in this current climate? Like, can I offer them a handshake? Are they gonna deny me the handshake and say, or like bump elbows with me because I've had the elbow
Yeah.
bump, or like the fist, like the air fist bump? You know, the pandemic's kind of made it a little bit awkward for you to figure out, okay, what kind of greeting can I give this person? And it's also kind of the same way with Yu-Gi-Oh. It's like, did this person let me like want to touch their deck, not touch their deck? And then of course comes the question of, okay, if they're the ones only handling their deck, is there like a form of cheating going on now that they're the only ones touching their deck and everything like that? Like, if I can't touch their cards to read it, now it's like, now I got to go back to my phone again. It's like, hold on. And now that I'm using my phone, they're going to be like, am I cheating? So there's a little bit of that going back and forth. So there's still a little bit of the carryover from online play kind of seeking into the in real life play. So there's a little bit that's added. And of course, that's still something I'm trying to get used to. Like I tell everybody, go ahead, you can touch my card, shuffle it, I don't care, whatever. But of course, that's just my thought. It's not everybody's thought.
It's kind of funny that you bring up like the deck shuffling and stuff like that, because in between lockdowns in Ontario, because we've had a few of them. In between lockdowns in Ontario, I went to a Final Fantasy TCG tournament, and a lot of the shuffling and stuff there, my opponent just told me where they wanted me to cut and like to make it still, but still there is like some. Even if your opponent's telling you what to do, like how to cut your deck, you're still the only person touching your deck. So I get what you're saying there with like, is that person cheating? And now if you're not touching cards, you have to look at your phone, and it makes an already I don't want to say a toxic community, because Yu-Gi-Oh can be a little toxic. But especially at the competitive level, it turns like an already like slightly toxic community into like a more of like a paranoid toxic community, if you know what I'm saying. I'm not bashing Yu-Gi-Oh players here, because toxicity exists in all card games, even Pokemon. But it definitely unnecessarily fuels that fire.
Yeah, there's definitely a level of paranoia and suspicion that kind of comes with the pandemic now, because I've had people ask me to shuffle and mix my cards up in ways I've never thought of before, and now it starts to happen a little bit more. So normally, when I do my shuffling, I would just, I don't typically pile shuffle. I would just do like the riffle shuffle, maybe cut in half several times, and let them do like a final cut, and that would be it. But now I've got people telling me after I'm done all my stuff, now people tell me, all right, shave the top 6 cards or top 3 cards, or they would like roll a die. See what the numbers say. Shave that many cards off the top of your deck, put it at the bottom, and that would be it. And now that's starting to carry over into like real life dueling. Now I'm getting some people that are saying, "Yeah, I'm just gonna roll die and just shave that many cards off." And I hate it, because when people tell me that, often when they do that, then I get a bad hand more often than not. So I'm praying to God that nobody tells me to do that, because I've been getting so many more bad hands that way.
There you go. That's worse. Now. We are both in Ontario, and I know that restrictions have been, I don't want to say slowly easing up, because they've literally hit the gas on the ease ups on these restrictions. Are you finding now, since the restrictions are easing up now, that's making a lot of this stuff less common or more common? Like a lot of like the shave this stuff off the top of your deck, or I don't want to touch your deck. Is that becoming more common or less common?
It's definitely becoming less common again, because I feel like a lot of people are starting to they're getting mentally exhausted from Yu-Gi-Oh, from the pandemic.
Yeah.
And they want to start living their lives again as if it doesn't exist. Of course, there are some people that are still taking the precautions, but there's nothing wrong with that. But there are some people who just kind of act like, okay, it's not really there anymore. Kind of like me, in a sense that I'll wear my mask if I'm asked to, or if I have to, that's fine. But the second I get to, I'm allowed to take off my mask, it's off.
Yeah,
it's going off, and I'm perfectly okay with me like playing in a room with a bunch of people with no mask. I'm perfectly fine with that at this point in time. I'm like, I've got the triple jab. I've got it before, and it was just a bad cough and a sore throat for a week. That's all it was for me. So I'm not saying it doesn't mean I'm not going to get it again, but you know what? If I get it, I'm not going to be that upset if I get it again. It's I'm going to treat it like the cold or the flu at this point. So if it happens, it happens. because like I'm also getting socially exhausted with the pandemic, as I'm sure everybody else is. But you know, at
Yeah.
the same time, at the same time, I understand the people that still want to be cautious, that still want to protect themselves, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't think there's anything wrong with at this point with keeping your with taking it off now, because we're kind of nearing the end of it. We could not be.
Yeah.
Depends what the science says, but with the experience that I've already had with it, if I get it, it's just okay, whatever. I don't care. So at this point, I'm kind of seeing it kind of ease up a little bit more now, and people are starting to be okay with it, because I've asked a lot of friends to come over to my place, and there are some of my friends that are, like hesitant because of the COVID that's been running around. But now, like that we're like more deeper and deeper, like past the pandemic, more people are like, okay, yeah, I'll come over at this point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sure, that kind of thing. So like even the most skeptical have been able to come over my house now with like a lot of people. Like I would have like 7, 8 people in my house, unmasked, whatever, playing. We're all vaxxed, playing, and whatever, and we're all cool with it. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to see a little bit more of that grow, but there's still little remnants of it that are still sticking around. So we're not in the clear yet. It's not fully back to what it was before, but you can kind of see it open up a little bit more as we start to get back into more in real life events moving forward.
Yeah. Now lastly, as opposed to like the game side of a switch through our IRL to pandemic, is there any differences in like, so you're going to like a YCS IRL? Is there any differences in preparation for that event than going into a YCS on a more online remote scale? Like, do you prepare your deck differently? Do you like prepare for a different metagame, or does all of that stay roughly the same?
When I would play in real life, I could usually change my deck up on a whim, because usually YCS would reward people on Friday, because that's the pre-registration day. So if you submitted your deck list before on that day, you would get like an extra gift. Uh, that would be in real life. But if I did that, then I wouldn't have to worry about what like making any deck changes and whatnot. I can
Mm-hmm.
go ahead. And there are some times where I've submitted my deck list on the Friday night rather than the Saturday morning. When I do that online, none of that happens. There's doesn't really happen. So at that point, I would start being more experimental. If I didn't have like a set deck list, I'd be like, I'd tinker with this, tinker with that. Does this combo work? It'd be like last minute studying in a
Yeah.
sense.
Okay.
Yeah. So like if I were to play in real life, if I submit my deck list on Friday, I'm stuck. I can't make any changes. That's the deck I'm playing with. So now I'm focused on playing that deck for the rest of the night, and that kind of leads into not having enough sleep, because I would play into like 2 a.m. in the morning and have to wake up at 8 a.m. and get my deck ready. It's just training at this point rather than experimentation. That would probably be one of the only things that would change in that sense, is just how you approach it. But then, of course, there have been times where I've come in on Saturday morning and submitted my deck list and do that very same thing of just experimenting beforehand. That's all. So just the option of being able to submit your deck list kind of early would be the only thing that would kind of change in that sense.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for coming out once again. Like I said, you were the perfect person for this, because I know you've done a couple of the bigger events, remote duel wise, and you're always rocking out those IRL events when you can. So, thank you for coming out once again. And as always, where can we find you online?
Yeah, well, you can find me online on YouTube. You can find me under my username, Gateguardian44. As you mentioned at the start, I am the founder and host of the Gate Expectations podcast, where I interview famous Yugioh players, content creators, anyone of that sort, any high-end names that are within the game itself, whether either behind-the-scenes person or a player or content creator. I'll do all those kind of interviews. And I also do a segment called The Gate News, where I kind of do like a weekly segment where like I kind of bring all the Yu-Gi-Oh news that happened with the week all together, because in real life I'm a journalist. So I thought I'm going to bring that kind of persona into the Yu-Gi-Oh world, because there's not really a whole lot like that, or rather there's not like a full level of professionalism of journalism that's in Yu-Gi-Oh. So I thought I'd bring that aspect into it. Of course, there are some elements that there are some people out there who will bring out news and whatnot, but I'm the only one so far that is like a full-fledged journalist actually doing the news stuff. So that is kind of my selling point, and the uniqueness I bring to the table with my YouTube channel. Gate Expectations Podcast. You'll find it on YouTube as Gateguardian44.
Awesome. And thank you for coming out. Thank you for chatting. This was actually really helpful for me as IRL events come back. I'm very interested to see where all this is going, and definitely going to be looking. Definitely, as a Pokemon player, I'm going to be looking forward to Salt Lake City this weekend. It is the first regionals in America in well over 2 years, and it's going to be exciting to see what's played and how our meta continues to shape up. So thank you, and as always, friends, stay safe out there, and I will see you when I see you, and have yourselves a great night. That actually seems like a really good idea, but no, like, there's so many games that came out during COVID, like Final Fantasy VII Remake. For me, I beat that game literally in like days.
Yeah,
days.
I just wanted to and I just would sit down, maybe I'd grab some food and then watch the cutscenes.
Yeah,
and I would eat during the cutscenes, and I'd stay up to 4 or 6 a.m. in the morning easily.
Yeah,
wake up, and if I didn't have anything to do, because from Thursday to Sunday, I had nothing to do during the pandemic. I would work 3 days a week, which was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for the freelance paper, and then Thursday to Sunday is just nothing but video games.
Yeah,
great 4 days, and I'll do maybe shopping between, clean the house, but other than that, I just play this video games.
I definitely need to sit down and just grind the hell out of 7 Remake again, because I didn't even do the extra hard stuff in that for the, go back to the hard mode.
I did do that, but right now I haven't touched it since, because I'm trying to do there's that simulation machine when you're building. So in hard mode, there's a gauntlet you have to run through. I can't beat that gauntlet right now. I just stopped.
Yeah,
I think I gotta get that, because if you do it, it gets you that item that lets you get your limit break that much faster.
Yeah. I kind of want to pick up Strangers of Paradise, the Final Fantasy Origin,